The gray walls of the cell pressed Ryan Turner into his third year, 28 years old, and he would spend 4 of them behind bars. In the dim light of the lamp, he looked at a photograph of a young woman with clear eyes and a slight, subtle smile. Ashley, his wife, the only thing keeping him afloat in this concrete hell. Tuesday was mail day. Ryan waited for a letter from Ashley. She wrote less and less often, but he convinced himself that was normal. Life on the outside flowed differently. "Turner, mail," the warden said indifferently as he slid an envelope between the bars. Ryan jumped up from his bunk and grabbed the letter. Unfamiliar handwriting. No return address. Inside were 3 photos and a short note. "I think you should know what your hottie is up to." The first photo is of Ashley laughing in a coffee shop in front of a young man. Second, the same man puts his arm around her shoulders outside a movie theater. Third, they kiss at the door of her apartment. Their apartment. The blood rushed to her face. Ryan clenched the photos so tight his knuckles turned white. Red spots swam before his eyes. He slammed his fist into the wall, again and again. The pain was sobering, but the rage was only getting worse. "Hey, take it easy, cowboy," came a hoarse voice from the next cell. It wasn't the wall's fault. Victor Johnson, nicknamed Rat, was one of the old-timers in the prison. 50 years, almost 20 of them behind bars, knew everything and everyone. Information was his currency. "None of your business," Ryan snapped at him. "Problems with a woman?" Victor grinned. "Let me guess. Your hottie found someone on the outside?" Ryan darted toward the bars, separating their cells. "How do you know?" "I know a lot, kid." Rat lowered his voice. "My nephew came to visit me last week. Said he saw your wife with some guy at the Blue Dolphin, making out like teenagers." Ryan remembered meeting Ashley there, at the Blue Dolphin, where she worked as a waitress. He'd come in for a drink after a successful case. The stolen watch had sold for triple the price. Ashley brought him a whiskey, and he asked for her number. "Did she drop a few words to you on her last visit?" Victor continued. "Something like, 'We need to talk,' or 'I need to move on'?" Ashley hadn't visited in 2 months. Last time, she was strangely distant, talking about the future, about change, and in her last email a month ago, she wrote that they needed to have a serious talk when he got out. "Who the hell is he?" Ryan growled. "Mark Keller, the manager at Johnson's Electronics. Typical right guy with the right job." Ryan slammed into the wall with force once more, feeling no pain in his shattered knuckles. Images surfaced in his mind. Their first date. Ashley in a light blue dress, her hair smelling of apples, her laughter as he talked about his ventures. "You're so brave," she'd said then. Brave, not reckless or criminal. Their wedding a modest one, at City Hall, after only 6 months of knowing each other. She 21, he 25. "Forever, Ryan, I promise," she whispered. And other memories, like the dark underside of a postcard. His jealousy when Ashley was late after her shift. How he'd check her phone while she slept. The fight over the man who stared at her too long at the bar, Ryan breaking his nose and Ashley screaming, begging him to stop her crying face when he twisted her arm, demanding to tell her where she was. "You're hurting me, Ryan." He loved her. In his own way, he did. He just couldn't control his jealousy. And then there was that robbery that didn't go according to plan. 4 years behind bars. Ashley promised to wait. "You realize she doesn't love you anymore, right?" Victor lit a cigarette, exhaling the smoke out the narrow cell window. "Forget about her, kid. Shut up!" Ryan could feel it boiling up inside. Now, cool it. She betrayed you, but life doesn't end there. She's my wife. She's mine. From what my nephew told me, she's very much his now." Victor grinned. "You know, they're even planning to move together. To Phoenix, I think." Something snapped inside Ryan. He grabbed the metal bowl and threw it against the wall. Then he started throwing books off the shelf, ripping up sheets, pounding his fists into the mattress. "Turner! Turner!" shouted the warden as he passed by. "Fuck you!" yelled Ryan as he continued to ransack the cell. When his cellmate Dave returned to the cell, Ryan was still furious. Dave tried to calm him down and got punched in the jaw. He saw something new and frightening in Ryan's eyes. Pure, unadulterated hatred. The wardens rolled Ryan up and sent him to the holding cell for 3 days. In the darkness and solitude, his thoughts crystallized. She had betrayed him. She would pay for this. He would kill her, kill both of them. The decision oddly calmed him, as if someone had finally turned on the light in the dark room. When Ryan returned from the SSU, he was calm and focused. Victor watched him with interest. "You're looking better, kid." "I need to get out of here," Ryan said quietly. "You've got 4 more years." "I can't wait 4 years." Victor looked at him carefully, then looked around and lowered his voice. "What are you going to do when you get out?" "What I have to," Ryan answered, looking straight into the old prisoner's eyes. Victor chuckled. "It's not worth it, kid. Not only are you going to do time, but you're going to pin a murder on yourself." "I don't care. She's mine. If it's not mine, it's nobody's." Victor looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "Well, if you're serious, there is a possibility, but it's going to cost you. I have money on the outside. Not just money. This kind of thing doesn't go away without blood, you know?" Ryan nodded. "I do." The next weeks turned into careful planning. Victor, who had connections even among the guards, told him that the prison workshop would be undergoing repairs in 2 weeks. A wall would have to be partially dismantled to replace the water pipes. "There will be a blind spot for the cameras," Victor explained. "But there will still be a guard. Something will have to be done about him." Ryan nodded. He was already sharpening a shiv from a piece of metal Victor had gotten through his channels. Every night, Ryan lay awake, imagining how he would find Ashley, how he would squeeze her throat, how he would look into her eyes as the life began to leave her body. He imagined how she would beg for mercy, how this new lover of hers would try to intervene. He would kill them both slowly. That was the only thing that mattered now. The day of the escape came gray and rainy. Ryan was in the workshop with 3 other inmates. The plan was for 2 of them to distract the guard, and Victor, who had access to the workshop due to his secure prisoner status, was to signal when the way was clear. The workers had dismantled part of the wall, opening access to the pipes. Guard Ray Dawson, a young fellow new to the service, stood at the door, glancing occasionally at the prisoners. "Hey, officer," one of the prisoners called out to him. "I think the pipes burst." Dawson frowned and took a step toward the work area. At that moment, Victor discreetly nodded to Ryan. "It's time." Ryan moved behind the guard's back, clutching the shiv in his hand. In one motion, the blade entered Dawson's neck, just below the ear. Blood rushed in a torrent, pouring over the form. The guard tried to scream, but only a gurgling sound escaped his throat. He fell to his knees, clasping the wound with his hand, eyes widened with shock and pain. Ryan grabbed his gun and shot him in the head without hesitation. The other 2 prisoners looked on in horror. They hadn't expected such brutality. Victor, on the other hand, watched with cold calculation. "Now you have 10 minutes tops before the alarm goes off," he said. "Through the breach in the wall, then along the eastern fence where the trees are. You'll find a blue canister, clothes, and some money inside. Good luck, kid." Ryan nodded and rushed toward the breach. Squeezing between the pipes, he found himself in a narrow technical corridor that led outside. Rain whipped across his face as he made his way out into the open air. The sirens were still silent. He had a head start. There was only one thought in his head, clear and crisp as a bell: find Ashley and do what he had to do. Detective Miguel Diaz rubbed his inflamed eyes as he looked at the crime scene photos. Security guard Dawson's blood splattered the entire workshop. The brutality of the murder was impressive, even by the standards of prison escapes. "What do we have on Turner?" Diaz asked a young officer sorting papers. 28 years old, served time for armed robbery, 4 years left. Previous convictions for assault and battery, mostly domestic violence, though his wife refused to press charges. Diaz nodded. Classic portrait: controlling, violent, then a felony that ends in jail, and now an escape with murder. What could have provoked it? Turner was a quiet inmate, good behavior until recently. 3 days ago, he had a breakdown, trashed his cell, assaulted a fellow inmate. They put him in the SHU. "Check all his correspondence and visits for the last month," Diaz ordered. The detective entered Turner's cell. Standard cell. A bunk, a nightstand, a shelf for his belongings. On the wall was a photograph of a young woman with blonde hair and a wide smile. "His wife?" Diaz asked the warden. "Yeah, Ashley Turner. Used to come every month. Then she stopped. Diaz noticed the slit in the mattress. He put his hand in the hole and found some crumpled papers. Pulling them out, the detective unfolded the crumpled sheets. Blueprints, sketches of a house. The address was 23 Maple Street. Drawings depicting a woman, the one from the photograph, with her face crossed out. And the words written over and over again: whore, traitor, death. Shit, Diaz cursed. We need to find her, now. An hour later, Diaz was standing on the porch of an old bungalow on Maple Street. The door was opened by an elderly woman with disheveled gray hair. LAPD, Diaz showed his badge. I'm looking for Ashley Turner. She doesn't live here anymore. The woman nervously adjusted the collar of her robe. I rented this place 3 months ago. Do you know where she moved to? I have no idea. The landlord said the previous tenants had moved out. Trying to find Ashley's new address through the driver's license and utility database didn't work. The Vital Records office didn't have any information on the divorce either. She's in hiding, Diaz told his partner. And it looks like she knows who she's hiding from. You think she thought he'd run? No, but she was clearly afraid he'd come back, even after he served his time. Diaz checked Ashley's last known place of employment, the Blue Dolphin Bar. The manager, a full-bodied man with balding hair, shook his head. She quit about 6 months ago, said she found something better. You should have her contact information. Look it up in personnel, but I don't think there's anything up to date. The only thing on file is an old address on Maple Street and a cell phone that's no longer in service. Was she in contact with any of the employees? Diaz didn't back down. The manager hesitated. She seemed friendly with Janet. She's on the evening shift tonight. Diaz decided to come back tonight. Time was working against them. Turner had been on the loose for over 24 hours. Ryan stood in the shower of the cheap motel, washing away the prison grime. The hot water burned his skin, but he hardly noticed it. Ashley's face was in front of his eyes, the beautiful face he'd loved, the face that had betrayed him. After escaping, he quickly found that blue canister Victor had mentioned. Inside were jeans, a t-shirt, a baseball cap, and an envelope with $500. Not much, but enough to start. Most importantly, there was a gun, an old .38 caliber revolver with 6 rounds. Now he was 20 miles from the prison, in a motel where you could rent a room for cash and no ID. The first order of business was to find Ashley. He remembered her old address, but he doubted she was still there, especially if she had a new man. Ryan pulled on clean clothes and turned on the TV. His own photo appeared on the screen, a prison photo with a license plate. The announcer called him armed and extremely dangerous. Ashley, you have no idea how dangerous I am, Ryan whispered, staring at the screen. He needed information. The bar where Ashley used to work must know something, but it was best not to go there. It was too obvious. There had to be someone else. And then it hit him. Janet, Ashley's best friend. They worked at the bar together. Janet Myers finished her shift at 2 a.m. tired. She walked out the back door of the bar and headed for her car in the half-empty parking lot. The sound of footsteps behind her made her turn around. Hey, Janet, remember me? She froze. Yes, she remembered this man. Tall, with sharp features, eyes like ice. Ashley's husband, who was always making a scene and had once grabbed her arm roughly when he thought she was a bad influence on his wife. Our Ryan? Janet's voice trembled. You're not supposed to be here. Where am I supposed to be, Janet? He moved closer. In jail? While my wife is fucking someone else? I don't know what you mean! The blow struck her cheekbone, knocking her onto the hood of the car. Her eyes went black. Don't lie to me, he hissed. Where is she? Please don't. Ryan grabbed her by the hair and slammed her head hard against the hood. The address, Janet. Now, I'm not sure, she sobbed. She was hiding it. But you know something. She works at Johnson's Electronics on Broadway, and she's dating the manager. Please don't. Ryan pulled out a knife and put the blade to Janet's throat. Name: Mark Keller. She was going to Phoenix with him. When? Soon. This week. I swear that's all I know. Ryan thought for a moment, then slammed the handle of the knife sharply into Janet's temple. She collapsed, unconscious. Thanks for the information. he whispered and headed out of the parking lot. Detective Diaz returned to the Blue Dolphin late that night. The bar was half full, blues music blaring from the speakers. Diaz approached the bar. "Is Janet Myers working tonight?" The bartender shook his head. "She didn't show up for her shift, and she's not answering her cell phone. That's not like her." Diaz felt something tighten inside. It couldn't be a coincidence. "Where does she live?" Pine Street, a block from here. Third house on the right." 10 minutes later, Diaz was standing in front of Janet's apartment door. No one answered the door. He nodded to the officer accompanying him, and he kicked the door open. The apartment was empty. A purse lay on the floor in the hallway, its contents scattered around. It looked as if Janet had dropped it as soon as she entered. In the bathroom, the detective saw traces of blood in the sink. Someone had washed the blood off their hands. "Turner was here," Diaz said, and Janet seemed to have told him what he wanted to know. He snapped a picture of a list of contacts pinned to the refrigerator door. Among them was Susan G., labeled Ashley's mom. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Ashley and Mark were making final preparations to leave. Their apartment was littered with boxes. A new home in Phoenix, a new job, a new life, away from the past. "I still don't like that your divorce hasn't been finalized yet," Mark said, taping up another box. "I'll get a new lawyer in Arizona," Ashley replied. "Everything will be fine, I promise." She hadn't told him the whole truth. She didn't tell him that she woke up every night with nightmares of Ryan finding her. She didn't tell him that she hid the knife under her pillow and flinched at every unexpected sound. The phone rang. Mark glanced at the screen. "It's your mom." Ashley smiled and picked up the phone. "Hi, Mom." "Ashley, honey." Her mother's voice sounded strained. "Can you come over? I don't feel well." "What's wrong?" "Just come, please. Alone." Something about that request made Ashley uneasy. Mom never asked her to come alone. "I'll call you back in 5 minutes, okay?" Ashley said and disconnected. "Was something wrong?" Mark asked. "I don't know." Mom didn't feel well, but she sounded weird. She dialed her mother's number again, but the phone was already off. "Let's go together," Mark suggested. Ashley nodded, feeling a growing uneasiness. Susan Garner lived in a small house on the outskirts of town. When Ashley and Mark drove up, there were no lights on in the windows. "That's odd," Ashley said. "Maybe she went to bed." "At 9 o'clock at night?" Mark looked worried. "Wait in the car, I'll check." "No, let's go together." They went up to the porch. Mark knocked, but there was no answer. Ashley pulled out her key and opened the door. "Mom?" Silence. Ashley turned on the hallway light. Everything looked normal. "Susan?" Mark called out, walking further into the house. They entered the kitchen, and Ashley screamed. Her mother was sitting at the table, her head bowed unconsciously on her chest. A pool of blood was spreading on the floor. "Oh my God, oh my God!" Ashley rushed to her mother, fumbling for a pulse on her neck. "Mom!" Mark was already dialing 911 when there was a loud sound of something falling in the living room. They froze. Ryan was nowhere to be seen, but Ashley knew he was somewhere nearby. "We need to leave, now," Mark whispered, grabbing Ashley's hand. They ran out the back door, jumped in the car, and drove off, nearly hitting a mailbox. Ashley sobbed, and Mark tried to calm her down while simultaneously typing the address of the nearest police station on the navigator. Ryan stepped out of the shade of the trees in the yard, watching their car disappear around the corner. He didn't follow them. In his pocket was Mark's wallet with his driver's license, which had the address on it. Riverside Drive, 14, Apartment 7. Now he knew where to find them. Diaz raced through the night streets, breaking all speed limits. He found Susan Garner's address in the phone book. His intuition told him there wasn't a minute to lose. Uniforms were already in place when he pulled up. An officer met him at the front door. "One victim, female, mid-50s, multiple stab wounds." "Ashley Turner?" "No, Idaho. Says it's Susan Garner, presumably Ashley's mom." Diaz went into the house. Mee was in the kitchen examining the body. "Time of death? 2 to 4 hours ago. Killer was violent. At least 10 blows. She bled out." Diaz took a look around the room. There's a trail of blood on the floor leading to the exit. On the table, a cell phone with the last outgoing call to Ashley's number. He used the mother to lure the daughter here, Diaz muttered. "Detective!" shouted an officer from the next room. "There's signs of a struggle and drops of blood leading to the back door." "Someone called 9111 from this address 10 minutes ago," another officer reported. A male voice reported an assault and homicide. The call was interrupted. Diaz grabbed the radio. "We need to find the caller. Could be Mark Keller, Ashley Turner's boyfriend, put out an APB on his car. We found tire tracks in the yard. Someone left in a hurry." "Turner was here, but he missed them," Diaz said. "Now they're running and he's hunting." He returned to the house and noticed a magnet on the hallway nightstand that read, "Johnson's Electronics, always best prices." On the back was the address of the store and the work phone number of one Mark Keller, the manager. "Check out this Keller's address. Turner may have headed there." 20 minutes later, a patrolman reported finding Keller's car in the police station parking lot. "They came to turn themselves in?" Diaz wondered. "No, sir, they just ditched the car and took a cab." The officer on duty recognized Keller from the photograph. "Where'd they go?" "Sunset Motel on the edge of town. Keller said they were afraid to go home." "Smart move," Diaz nodded. "Send a patrol to the motel, and to their house too, just in case." Mark and Ashley were sitting in a cheap motel room. Ashley was still trembling, remembering her mother's dead eyes. Mark held her hand, trying to calm her down. "The police are guarding us," he said. "Tomorrow morning we'll leave like we planned. Leave this town forever." "He found us," Ashley whispered. "He always does. He won't this time, I promise." He couldn't know that Ryan had already tracked down their real home, that while they were hiding in the motel, he was watching their apartment, knowing that sooner or later they would return there. For things, for papers, for anything. Ryan sat in the stolen car in front of the house on Riverside Drive. He saw the police patrol parked out front, saw officers circling the building periodically. They were waiting for him, but he was patient. In the glove compartment was a gun, 6 rounds of ammunition, 3 each. In his pocket was a sharp knife he'd already killed twice with. He felt strangely calm, almost peaceful. Everything was falling into place. Ashley had betrayed him, and she would die for it. Her lover would too. It was so simple and clear. He wasn't angry anymore. The anger was gone. Only cold determination remained. Ryan leaned back in his seat, keeping his eyes on the windows of apartment 7. Let the police stay on duty as long as they wanted. Sooner or later they'd leave, or they'll change, or let their guard down. And he'll wait for his time. The sky was beginning to lighten. A new day was dawning. A day that would be Ashley and Mark's last. Ryan was sure of it. The morning was gray and rainy. Ashley and Mark returned to their apartment on Riverside Drive after a sleepless night at the motel. The police patrol outside their apartment assured them that there was no danger. The neighborhood had been combed, and there was no sign of Ryan Turner. "Do you think we're doing the right thing?" Ashley asked, looking out the window at the wet asphalt below. Mark put his arm around her shoulders from behind. "Detective Diaz said the safest thing to do right now is to get as far away as possible. We have tickets for the evening flight. We just need to finish packing." Ashley nodded. "Mom's dead. Ryan, the man she once loved, killed her. Killed to get to her. The pain of loss mixed with guilt, forming a toxic cocktail that poisoned every thought. I had to protect her." "You couldn't have known." Mark turned her around, peering into her crying eyes. "Look, it's not your fault. I knew what he was capable of. I should have seen it coming." Mark sighed. They had discussed this many times overnight. Ashley blamed herself, and no argument could change her mind. "I have to go to work," Mark said. "Last day to sign the transfer papers. Are you going to be okay here by yourself?" Ashley tensed. Being alone in the apartment after everything that had happened? "There's a patrol car right outside," Mark noted her concern. "And I'll be in touch. 2 hours tops, I promise." "Okay," Ashley nodded. "I'll finish packing." Mark kissed her and left, leaving Ashley alone with creepy memories and boxes to move. Ryan watched the house all night, waiting out the rain in the stolen car. He saw the patrolmen periodically circle the building, saw the early morning cab pull up, and Ashley and her lover get out. They were back, just as he'd anticipated. Ryan waited patiently for his time. He hadn't slept, but he didn't feel tired. Adrenaline and thirst for revenge kept him in a state of cold concentration. 2 hours after their return, Ryan noticed Mark leave the house and get into a cab. Ashley was alone. Perfect. He waited for the patrol car to leave. Obviously, a new pair of officers were taking over. He had a 15 to 20-minute window. Ryan got out of the car and headed for the back door of the building. The lock on the service door wasn't a problem. Years of criminal experience hadn't gone to waste. A minute later, he was already climbing the stairs, clutching a knife in his pocket. Ashley was putting her clothes in her suitcase when she heard a soft creak of floorboards in the hallway. She froze, listening. "Mark?" Silence. She slowly walked over to the bedside table where the cell phone lay. Her fingers touched the screen, preparing to dial 911. "Don't do this!" A voice she hoped she'd never hear again came from behind her. Ashley turned around abruptly. Standing in the doorway was Ryan, unshaven, gaunt, with the cold eyes in which she'd once seen love. Now there was only emptiness. "How did you find you?" Ryan grinned. "It wasn't hard. You were always predictable, Ashley." He took a step into the room. Ashley backed away, feeling her heart pounding against her ribs. "Ryan, please leave. The police are looking everywhere for you." "I know, but I don't care. I came here to finish what I have to finish." "You already killed my mother." Ashley's voice trembled. "Wasn't that enough?" Ryan's eyes narrowed. "Not enough? Do you really think your mother's death can make up for what you did to me? What I did to you?" Ashley felt something inside her break. Years of fear and humiliation suddenly crystallized into anger. "I loved you, supported you when everyone else turned their backs. I waited for you while you were in prison." "And then you found someone else," Ryan hissed, taking another step forward. "As soon as I was behind bars, you ran to find a replacement." "No, I was trying to survive. Do you have any idea what it's like to live with a man who makes every day a nightmare? Who controls your every move? Who raises his hand to you and then swears he loves you?" Ryan lunged forward with unexpected speed. His fist slammed into Ashley's jaw, throwing her back on the bed. A flash of pain blurred her vision. "Shut up!" he growled, looming over her. "You're my wife. Do you hear me?" Ashley tried to crawl away, but Ryan grabbed her by the hair, pulling her to her feet. His face contorted with rage. "You think I haven't seen the way you've looked at other men? How you flirted with them when you thought I couldn't see? It was all in your head," Ashley whispered, feeling the metallic taste of blood in her mouth. "It was always just in your head." Ryan punched her again, this time in the stomach. Ashley bent over in pain, gasping, "In my head? And that guy at the bar, and the instructor at the gym, and now this... What's his name? Mark?" He said the name as contemptuously as if he were spitting out something poisonous. "Mark had nothing to do with it." Ashley struggled to straighten up. "I met him after you and I broke up." "We didn't break up. We did! The day you broke my rib and then made me lie in the hospital. The day you promised to kill me if I tried to leave. We broke up, Ryan. You just didn't see it coming." Ryan froze for a moment, as if trying to comprehend her words. Then his face contorted with anger again. "You'll never leave me. Never." He pulled out a knife, and Ashley felt herself grow cold inside. This was the end. He's really going to kill her. "Ryan, put the knife down, please. We can talk." "We can talk?" He laughed, but it sounded like metal clinking against glass. "What should we talk about, Ashley? About how you betrayed me? The way you spread your legs for that lowlife while I rotted in prison?" "I did not betray you." She could feel the tears running down her cheeks. "You ruined everything. Your control, your jealousy, your violence. You turned our love into a nightmare." Something flashed in Ryan's eyes. A shadow of doubt? Pain? But it quickly faded, replaced by cold determination. "You know, I pictured this moment every night in my cell," he said almost calmly. "Imagined killing you. Slowly, that you'd feel every second of your death." He stepped forward, raising the knife. "But now I just want it to be over." Ashley retreated to the window. There's nowhere to run. "Ryan, please, I loved you. I really did. Everything was so good in the beginning, remember? Our first date, the trip to the coast, the night you proposed." His face softened for a moment, and Ashley saw a glimpse of the man she'd once loved. the one who had made her laugh until she cried, who could be gentle and caring, who was lost somewhere, giving way to the monster standing in front of her. "Then why did you leave?" There was genuine pain in his voice. "Because I was afraid of you," Ashley whispered. "Afraid that one day you'd go too far, and here you are with a knife." Ryan looked at the knife in his hand as if seeing it for the first time. For a moment there was silence in the room, broken only by their heavy breathing. "It's too late," he finally said. "Too late for both of us." He lunged forward. Ashley tried to dodge, but the knife grazed her shoulder, slicing through her skin. A sharp pain shot through her, and she screamed. Ryan grabbed her by the throat, pushing her against the wall. "Look at me," he wheezed. "I want you to look into my eyes as you die." His fingers clenched tighter and tighter. Ashley gulped for air with her mouth, but no oxygen was getting to her lungs. Black spots swam before her eyes. "Our Ryan," she whispered with all her might. "Don't." The world was beginning to fade when suddenly the grip on her throat loosened. Ashley fell to her knees, gulping greedily for air. Through the noise in her ears, she heard a thud and the rumble of falling furniture. Mark. Somehow, the miraculously returned Mark was standing in the doorway, clutching a baseball bat. "Get away from her," he shouted. Ryan picked himself up off the floor where the blow had thrown him. Blood was streaming from his split eyebrow, but his eyes remained clear and cold. "Here comes the lover," he grinned, gripping the knife more comfortably. "Perfect timing. Now we can finish you both off." Mark took a step into the room, blocking Ashley's view. "Get out of here. The police are on their way." "You think that's going to stop me?" Ryan shook his head. "I'm already a dead man, but before I die, I'll have time to finish what I came to do." He lunged at Mark with the knife. He tried to fight back with the bat, but Ryan was faster. The blade went into Mark's shoulder, making him cry out in pain. The bat fell to the floor with a clatter. Ashley, still panting, crawled to the phone. Her fingers fumbled for the receiver, but at that moment Ryan grabbed her ankle, yanking her backward. The phone fell, crashing to the floor. "No calls, sweetheart," he hissed, pulling her closer to him. Mark, wincing in pain, lunged at Ryan. They rolled across the floor, knocking over furniture. Ashley heard thuds and curses. "Run!" Mark shouted, trying to hold onto Ryan's hand with the knife. "Run, Ashley!" She tried to get up, but her legs were shaking. At that moment, there was a wet crunch, and Mark made a strange gurgling sound. Ryan's knife had entered his throat. "No!" Ashley screamed as she watched the life leave Mark's eyes. Blood spurted from the wound, flooding the floor. Ryan stood up, breathing heavily. His clothes were soaked with Mark's blood. "Now it's your turn," he said hoarsely, stepping toward Ashley. The horror gave her strength. She jumped up and lunged for the door, but Ryan intercepted her, throwing her to the floor. A knife glinted in his hand. "Why?" Ashley whispered, looking into the eyes of the man who had once promised to love and care for her. "Why are you doing this to me?" "Because you're mine," Ryan answered simply. "And if I can't have you, no one will." He knelt down beside her, stroking her cheek with his bloody hand. "I loved you, Ashley. I really did." "That's not love," she whispered. "Love doesn't hurt." "You're wrong," Ryan shook his head. "True love always hurts." He raised the knife, but stopped suddenly, listening. Police sirens were blaring from the street. "Looks like we don't have much time," he said. "We'll have to move faster." His hands closed around Ashley's throat. This time he didn't want to stretch the process. His fingers squeezed her windpipe with merciless force. "Goodbye, Ashley," Ryan whispered, looking into her wide-open eyes. "I'll see you in hell." The life slowly left her body. The last thing Ashley saw before the darkness finally consumed her consciousness was Ryan's face, strangely calm, almost peaceful, as if he'd finally finished a long, exhausting job. Detective Diaz raced through the city streets, breaking every conceivable speed limit. The call from the neighbors about a suspicious man entering the house through the back door had come 15 minutes ago. The patrol that was supposed to be on duty outside Ashley and Mark's apartment had, by some misunderstanding, pulled back to the station to get new radios. A human error that probably cost someone their life. Diaz pulled up to the house at the same time as 2 patrol cars. The sirens had been turned off a block away to avoid spooking the perpetrator, but it was probably too late. Diaz could hear them howling from a distance. "Surround the building," he ordered the officers. "No one leaves without my orders." They went up the stairs to apartment number 7. The door was ajar. Diaz drew his gun and, making a sign to the officers, walked slowly inside. The living room was quiet, too quiet. Diaz moved cautiously toward the bedroom where some sounds were coming from. The picture before his eyes was horrifying. Mark Keller was lying on the floor in a pool of blood, his throat slit. Beside him was Ashley's still body, with black finger marks on his neck. And above them, leaning against the wall, sat Ryan Turner, clutching a bloody knife in his hand. "Turner!" shouted Diaz, pointing his gun at him. "Drop the knife, now!" Ryan slowly raised his head. His eyes were empty, as if the life had already left his body, leaving only a shell. "I'm done," he said quietly. "It's done." "Drop the knife and put your hands up," Diaz repeated. "Now." "She betrayed me," Ryan continued, as if he hadn't heard the order. "She was supposed to love me, not him. Turner, last warning, drop your weapon." Ryan looked at the knife in his hand, then looked down at Ashley's still body. "You know, Detective, I have no regrets. I don't regret anything." He got to his feet, still clutching the knife. "Stay where you are," Diaz shouted. Behind him, 2 officers were already standing with their guns at the ready. Ryan smiled an absent, otherworldly smile. "You think I'm afraid of prison?" He shook his head. "No, Detective. My life ended the moment I learned of her betrayal. Everything that happened afterward was a mere formality." He took a step forward, raising the knife. "Turner, don't." Diaz felt the sweat running down his back. "It's not too late to fix this." "It's too late," Ryan replied simply. "It's too late for all of us." And he lunged forward, drawing his knife to strike. Diaz fired first. The bullet hit Ryan in the shoulder, but it didn't stop him. The 2 officers opened fire almost simultaneously. 3 bullets entered Ryan's chest, the 4th in his throat. He fell to the floor, still clutching the knife in his hand. Dying, Ryan stared at Ashley's lifeless body. His lips moved, saying something, but Diaz couldn't hear the killer's last words. Did it matter? "Check the woman's pulse," Diaz ordered, kneeling down beside Ryan. But there was no need to check. The perpetrator's gaze was already frozen, staring into the void. "The woman has a pulse!" shouted one of the officers. "It's weak, but it's there." Diaz rushed over to Ashley, feeling for a pulse on her neck. Yeah, the officer was right. Faint, irregular, but it was there. "Call an ambulance, now!" he yelled, starting indirect cardiac massage. "Hold on, Ashley, hold on!" The sun peeked out from behind the clouds, casting a golden light on the room. In this bright light, the blood seemed even more red, contrasting with the pale skin of the victims. 3 people whose fates were entwined in a tragic knot. 1 dead, 1 dying, and the 3rd hanging by a thread. "Sir, the ambulance will be here in 3 minutes," the officer reported. Diaz continued CPR, ignoring the fatigue in his arms. He made a silent vow that Ryan Turner wouldn't get what he wanted. Ashley would live, had to live, because death doesn't have to be the end of this story, because even the darkest night ends with the dawn, and because life, for all its fragility, is always stronger than death. A few minutes later, the paramedics burst into the room, pushing Diaz away from Ashley. He stepped back to the window, letting the professionals do their job. Looking at Ryan Turner's body, the detective pondered the dark power of obsession, how love can turn into hate, and the fine line between the two. Ultimately, Diaz thought, it wasn't a bullet that killed Ryan Turner. He died the moment he decided that possession was more important than love, when control replaced trust, when jealousy consumed everything human about him. Outside the window, the howl of sirens mingled with the screams of the gawkers gathered at the cordon. Another tragedy, another story for the evening news. But for those in the room, this was more than just news. It was a story about how far a man can go in his obsession and the price one pays for that obsession. A price that on this rainy day, everyone paid.